Okay, I'm Rojo, and as is apparently a tradition now, I missed game one of the series today. TSM versus Golden Guardians, or I guess this game is Golden Guardians versus TSM. Golden Guardians on blue side, TSM on red side, and there I am. This is going to be 1.5 speed. Gonna go breakneck. Um, so first, of course, let's talk about draft. So we look at the top lane matchup. This is pretty favored towards the Vladimir because it allows him to get to where he wants to be. Uh, Not to say that Shen doesn't have an opportunity or some opportunities to um, trade against the Vladimir, maybe get some lane control, uh, temporary lane priority. It seems to be more favored towards the Vladimir because he just enjoys being able to farm, and Shen can't really stop him from doing that. Shen in relation to the rest of his team, obviously Shen is designed to protect more so than anything else. And when you have a hyperscaling champion, then another shield champion, I mean this isn't really that, and that's not really that. So a lot of this seems to be focused around the Caitlyn. Then we look at the jungle matchup, and it is Volibear versus Graves. I think genuinely Graves gets the better of this because he eventually just becomes more effective at being a champion than the Volibear. And the Volibear is strong, especially early on, very good at ganking, where the Graves is really just designed to counter match ganks and prevent the Volibear from snowballing. Um, Nothing much to say about this, I think. Generally, they're not going to duel each other, so it's not really going to interact. And the 2v2s, I would imagine that this 2v2 wins earlier on, and then uh, I guess it depends on targeting, but generally I think that top lane 2v2 is in GG's favor. It probably also is in the GG favor in terms of their mid lane 2v2. At least during the uh, early laning phase, and then I mean 2v2 doesn't actually matter that much, I think. Um, it's just down to Spica being able to be there to prevent the plays from happening. If that happens, then the 2v2 is not really relevant. But if he's late, or if it's or he tries to overforce, then we could see an issue where, uh, because of the CC damage that these three have in their respective 2v2s, um, it might not. If Speak is late, it could be problematic. The bottom lane 3v3 is interesting. I think you have to give it uh, Golden Guardians. I think that they have more um, agency. They can push the lane. They'll have priority. They will be able to dive towers. It won't be the smartest thing, I guess. Depends on situation, but I think that they'll the better 2v2 bot lane between these two. I think that Caitlyn Lux is really strong. Kind of exciting that it comes out here this game, and then the Karma Ashe is strong as well. Obviously, I think Karma received a nerf, but it's still very strong. The problem is that it's against another mage slash enchanter, and another champion that outranges Ashe, which Ashe usually likes to be able to do. Um, that's this. I'm pretty sure Caitlyn and Lux is gonna have control throughout the laning phase. I didn't really touch on the mid lane 1v1. Pretty sure this is going to be Syndra favored for a few levels, and then it shifts into Echo's favor. Not really because Echo can kill the Syndra, but because Echo is able to clear out and roam much more freely. Uh, Syndra's not really going to be a threat to him on those unless she teleports. She can't really follow him physically along with him because then he'll just go back onto her. So the Echo's ability to impact the bottom lane and the top lane is going to be much greater than Bjergsen's ability to impact Vladimir, who doesn't even have setup anyway. And then the Ashe and Karma, who aren't even really, you're not really ganking the carries. Really, what's probably going to actually happen is that Ashe is going to move towards the mid lane or use abilities in the mid lane to help the potential 2v2 once you hit like 6, and more like level 8 or 9, which is when I think that they'll start actually being able to win 2v2. And then especially with the assistance from Ashe and Karma, they'll be able to start aggressing. I think all of the resources should be shifting towards Bjergsen. They could move to the top lane, but I don't think that's necessarily the greatest because neither Graves nor Vladimir, while they are strong scaling champions in their respective roles, they do not provide any gank setup almost whatsoever. Honestly, Echo feels weird here because it's not necessarily unless my knowledge or analysis of this matchup is poor, but it doesn't feel like a counter to Syndra. Obviously, I didn't look at the draft, but in any case, I mean, I guess we can skim over. Echo did come in as a answer to the Syndra pick, so that's certainly interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily the right way to look at it. The fact that these two champions, in fact, 3 champions are going to be kind of going in face first into some of these champions. Ashe, Syndra, Karma, Graves. Vladimir is going to mostly be flanking onto Caitlyn and the Lux for easier targets, but the fact that these 3 are going to have to run face first into several champions that enjoy being run into feels like it's going to be to TSM's benefit. I actually don't. That might be beneficial to them. I don't necessarily know if this is like a hard winning draft. It's interesting because I'm like, nah, it's not hard winning. I think it's if it's winning, it's marginal. Because we have to also take into account execution because we need to evaluate, okay, how strong is the execution going to be on the Vladimir? Is Pika going to be able to mitigate plays by closer in the early game, prevent the snowball because the snowball will accelerate Golden Guardians past anything that they want, that TSM would want. They don't necessarily have scaling options either. They're not, or they do have scaling options. Ashe isn't necessarily a hyper scaling champion, but she does scale very well. Syndra will just be able to one-shot people more effectively over the course of the game. This obviously scales, and Vladimir obviously scales. But the issue that I think is Echo, Caitlyn, Lux, depending on what she buys, maybe. Volibear is obviously not a scaling champion, and Shen actually, because he's a tank, does scale, but it's a different kind of scaling that doesn't really deal with healing damage. So it's interesting. It's very dependent, I think, on jungle matchup, and then depending on how that is during the early game, we're gonna see how it kind of devolves. I think that TSM are probably gonna be wanting to team fight because they don't really have another option, even though team fighting seems to also be something that Golden Guardians want to do. I think the only real saving grace that really pushes the needle, I think, towards TSM's favor is that this becomes dead weight when everyone else is popping off, whereas no one here is really dead weight on TSM at any point in the game. They are basically all pretty uniform in the way that they want to fight. Maybe you could argue that Syndra and Ashe want to fight earlier than Vladimir might want to, but I think that one item Vladimir is perfectly fine to fight with. On to the game.
Things. TSM going 5 bots, so maybe looking for some sort of wraparound or cheeky invade. Maybe just going to camp in this brush and see if anyone came forward to actually go for a little bit of a warding mission.
TSM was going for a 5-man into this side of the into bottom lane. Doesn't really amount to anything. I'm not sure if they thought. I mean, I guess they do win level 1. So they must have thought, okay, GG are going to try to do the same thing, and we're going to match them, and then we're going to win the 5v5. But that's a little. I don't know. I've never seen that work. I don't know. I actually don't know what the actual execution idea behind it is, other than getting that ward that has been placed there and allowing Karma to actually stand fairly aggressively. So this is the interesting part of this matchup. I didn't notice this when I was thinking about the draft, but my thinking is that this should be a corrupting potion, shouldn't it be? Eyes paused. Carry on. No cheating, no cheating. But I believe that the Syndra should be should be starting with a corrupting potion to allow her to aggressively trade, like the Echo is aggressively trading, and then potentially getting a good recall off. The early recall will allow her to come back to lane with better advantage, and then she'll be able to push her game off from there. That's barely a sentence construction, but I got the point across. It's fine. And it means that, yeah, he's going relic shield. He's going to wait, he's going to scale. She's going biscuits. Is that enough? I mean, I guess it's fine. Yeah, I mean, she's still doing basically what she wanted to do, but I feel like she could have done it more aggressively, and okay. It's actually really good by Spica, and a pretty unlucky timing, I suppose, because they don't actually know where. Does have his flash. Should be fine. He should be dead. Buff transfer complete. Thanks for the cash money. Thank you very much. 300 more gold on board. That's actually really unfortunate. That actually ended up becoming Demonte's. That's actually really bad for the mid lane, which is your main focus in this game. But this was just a pretty bad timing for Demonte. Spica, what did he do that allowed him to do this? I think it was just Demonte poorly timed the movement to get the reward. Because it's a pretty normal ward to do, but the timing might have been off because I guess he was dealing with Bjergsen's harass and he wasn't able to actually get the wave in so he could get that ward off. But I don't think he needed to do that. I mean, end result is he gets the double buff, so he's happy. But yeah, I don't think that was necessarily a good play. Okay. Bottom lane is actually in TSM's favor, maybe because of the level 1 that was able to be cheesed, that I didn't really pay attention to, because I was paying attention to the corrupting potion. I feel like it shouldn't be this uneven, but maybe Karma versus Ashe poke or Karma versus Lux poke is rarely in Karma's favor. I feel like it shouldn't actually, it still shouldn't be that big of a disparity. I mean, this is like basically a full wave that they were denied for some reason. More than a full wave. Like a wave and a half that they were just completely denied from, and I'm not sure how that happened in the bottom lane. Okay, this wave is pushing in. Spica also was on the Gromp. He knew that Closer was on the bottom side because of the gank, so he decides to get the Gromp, get out, and Bjergsen was pushing the wave in so that he could more safely do that. Doesn't seem likely to happen, so who he has to back off, I'm not sure. Pretty obvious that wasn't going to work out. Ever, so range. Okay, Closer's actually in blue side jungle. I don't know if he's actually going to be able to get anything off. Okay, here's the point in the game where Echo can start clearing pretty much permanently, and becomes, I guess, more shifted towards the Echo, matchup-wise. I guess probably more accurately that it's just he's able to clear away against Syndra and they never really have to interact with each other too much. Or if they do, it's a short trade and they're not really going to be able to kill each other. Like, this is...
a lot here. Oh my god, Bjergsen is running low on health. Could this be a kill without flash just outside the stun? Devontae's going to clear the way and get out.
Yeah.
That
was a very aggressive play.
I would have been pretty scared.
Basically just walked into him. I don't know if that was the smartest thing to do.
Flash. Q. Yeah, if he didn't dodge that ult, that was going to be a death, so we have to get the Shen ulti out. It's not going to hurt that badly for Hunter. His wave's in an okay spot, but...
Hunter actually ults. He didn't need to, but I can see why he would have done... Oh, okay. Firefrost is just walking into places that he knows that Lux will be able to stop, or be able to stop him in. Broken Blade's actually getting free time in the top lane, so this is perfect for Vladimir. He doesn't feel that at all. The farming is going fine for the jungler, so everything's actually not going too bad at all for TSM. Obviously, this isn't ideal, but it's fine. They weren't really going to... I don't think that they should probably contest that anyway, because of the priority that is in the mid lane, and the fact that Vladimir's movement is... I mean, if you're not going to transfer your bottom lane upward, I don't think you go for this if you retrace him.
Just tends to be impactful. We'll see that probably come through fairly soon, as Bjergsen is going for Archangel Staff, a slightly more defensive option.
Okay,
exactly. And also,
see, there's a lot of river forwarding for Golden Guardians. It doesn't really amount to anything because the dragon is up in 2 minutes. They got the Rift Herald, so none of the vision actually matters.
Noting that, back on the Essence Reaver discussion a little bit for Ashe, because Caitlyn isn't playing Cleanse, we'll see if they can chase down Hu here, but probably not.
Okay, Huhi's not really going to be hurt here. This is good for Spica because it allows him to continue to accelerate past Volibear. Spica probably should... I mean, Spica doesn't really have anything to do. He could probably go up and do the Raptors instead of moving around here. Because I don't think that this is even possible to do. Is he just being inefficient? I mean, this is a case of... do you want to be as efficient as possible, or do you just want Biofrost to just tank every potential Q that that Lux throws?
Yep, another nice binding there from Hui, and this is again what I was talking
and as you can see, I mean, it works out just the same as if he just went through the mid lane up into the top lane, because then he would be slightly more efficient getting to his wolves. Doesn't really change anything. Closure being here doesn't matter, because weren't really super vulnerable. Especially once you've hit 6 on the Ashe, because you can prevent ganks like this. Sorry, Bjergsen's just dead. Probably a little aggressive, but to be fair, I think this is almost unavoidable if you're Syndra. Maybe you just flash and you can get out, but Hunter is now getting the shorter end of the Vladimir Shen life. I actually did watch another Shen Vladimir game where it seemed like the Shen could get some good plays on the Vladimir, but it didn't really amount to anything because Vladimir can always regen from any trade. This play is fine. I mean, again, they have the priority. They're not really going to be able to be pushed off of it. If you're TSM, you don't really want to go for these dragons, so I think this is perfectly fine. Probably going to see Graves going to move up Raptors, then do his whole red side. Finish that up, then back. Should do, most likely.
It allows Golden Guardians 20 straight minutes of split pushing as a result, right? That's the end game is, well, we took Infernal break number 1. Okay, we
or
took your
what's
inhibitor.
most obvious to do. Fairly easy.
Well, at what point is Golden Guardians the care? Is Infernal so better than Nexus? No. So, that is
so everyone's pretty much even. There's no real disparities. In fact, there's actually there's leads on basically every role. So, sure, Golden Guardians have 3 kills, 2 extra kills, 2 extra dragons. They used Herald, I believe? Did they use Herald? I always seem to miss when people... They use the Herald. Looked like it was thrown here, mid lane. For plates. It's fine.
To just get raw AP so that they can threaten the one shot on the back line. So when that team fight comes and you can
I always wonder the exact math, like what is the most efficient way of using the Herald. I should probably know that's a little dangerous for Spiga, but he can get out just fine. Okay, Phase Rush is a great rune. Broken Blade just takes first tower under Shen's nose. Shen isn't really able to stop him under tower. Now with that position, maybe they go and go for Herald, but I don't actually think that's smart for them to do that. Maybe at most they go for a steal, but I don't think that you go for the play here, especially with Bjergsen on the bottom side. I think that this is a little aggressive.
Fight over this one. Herald's going to be stunnable and smiteable. It's going to go to Spiga. I see done there. He's going to grab that one. No
He actually gets the smite, so he goes for the steal. And then I think you just get out. I think you try to your best to get out of here. Broken Blade is still in the pit. Things are actually going really, really well for TSM. That was very, very well played. Playing around the ranges of Golden Guardians, as I said, they have a very short range, and they're forced to walk into you. At least 3 champions are forced to walk into you, and of course Syndra, Ashe, Graves, Vladimir love that. In fact, also Karma. I mean, Vladimir is more of a flanking type of champion. That's more of his normative play pattern, at least that's what I think see a lot of the time in competitive. But if he's allowed to just stand with his team and you can walk into his Hemo Plague, I mean, I'm sure he'll take it too.
Seem to have corrected? I don't know the past tense of righted. Maybe it's righted.
Doing better.
They're doing better. The wrongs have been written. my brain keeps going written. That's the past tense of righted.
So this is a very hard winning position, I think, for TSM. I think that there's no reason why they should be able to lose the game, assuming normative play or no real, like, immense, amazing outplay by any individual player on GG. So it is kind of confusing as to how they lost. I'm very well aware of how the series went. The clean banger that was Game 5 was interesting, but we're in Game 1 right now, so looks like TSM are finally being able to posture in here, and you're kidding.
The laser, the Q snipe, and Close was there for good measure. I'm not even sure either jungler got the smite or it was slightly early from Speak. I couldn't quite tell which. The replay will tell us, but that is now soul point, infernal soul point for Golden Guardians.
That was really well done from Golden Guardians. Closer didn't even smite.
They're gonna give me a replay of that.
But this is just
Thank you.
really high damage combo. This is actually
Please
really
tell me
if Golden
he
Guardians feel
could.
like, okay, we can't actually win out on this fight, so they try to combo it. Lux
How did he?
Lux ult, built over Peacemaker, and smite. That just gets burst down from actually a very high amount of.
Okay, to be fair.
Really well done by Golden Guardians.
To be fair to Speak, it was at 800 last on the last frame that you could see. I'm not sure with the in-game ping, maybe you see in smaller number. Either way, it's really, really hard to get that one. That's actually genuinely difficult. I think that's fine for Speaker to miss. It's really unfortunate, obviously, but because now they're on soul point. So I think that you probably can't really go for dragons unless you win fights, because you can't go for 50-50s if you're TSM, unless GG already on the objective and you're somehow messed up getting there on time. But if they can help it, they really need to go for the fights rather than go for 50-50s, especially with the long-range burst that Caitlyn and Lux provide, because it adds a variable that prevents Speaker from being able to properly calculate despite some sort of difficult like, physics question being a number. But getting towers, good. I think all tier 1s are now dead for Golden Guardians, which does actually allow them to build up minions or prevent TSM from getting minions by freezing, which I'm not sure if they are going to do that, if the Golden Guardians are apt to do that, but they have the opportunity to with the way that the lanes are currently. I mean, Demonte is pretty aggressively moving forward, giving the wave back to Vladimir, who will then toss it back, and then of course the same thing is happening on the other side, so no freezes, obviously.
And Golden Guardians actually did lose 2 soul games themselves very early on, but that was with very weak late game comps. DP coming in, we'll see if they can find
TSM are in very, very precarious position. I have no idea why they're standing where they were standing. What were they waiting for? What were they looking at? What was that? What?
And that's going to be a big advantage for them, right?
They-
Because now you have this support.
This is an immense amount of CC, global range. I mean, like,
moving around. There is potential of a dive.
you get caught, you die.
Gotta be careful. They know that the wraparound is
And now with a 4v5 at best,
And
you're gonna get caught. But the Vladimir, there's the flank that I was talking about. Doesn't matter. FBI is still alive, so this is still a bit of a problem. This is the classic. Oh, 40 minutes before, or 40 seconds before the dragon.
This is really smart. They're
You
trying
know
to
what
stop them
you know what
from
time it
getting
is.
This is exactly what TSM
You know what
need to
time it
do.
is.
If you can keep them around here,
It's
they're
Tanner
gonna be able to
time.
reset, but Demonte looking over the wall here for Spica.
For damage on Spica, when does he get ults out? His health bar's a bit low. He was like over 500, and the respawn coming in.
This is
Broken
still
alive in 12 seconds.
really
Same time as the Drake, he can run back across the map.
lit.
Trying to heal up on the jungle
Broken
camp.
Blade
TSM
will
are
not
healthy, and
be able to
despite losing their
TP,
top laner,
but
TSM
they
have
do have
wrested
control over the
jungle.
dragon.
They're poised to take
This
the
seems
tower.
like it's going to be
Really
some
smart. Bridgerton
int
has
stuff.
no ultimate. Bridgerton and Biofrost are zoning. There comes the left stealthy, so this should be TSM Dragon. Really intelligent flame calling to actually just chase them down after that fight. And now
I was like,
Yeah, stays a
I
bit
was
too long, but maybe it's a bait.
very,
It's
very
really kill
expectant
points not bad.
of
So Flash was Volo Bear,
someone
which
just
could be a problem next 5
Caitlyn
minutes.
and
Well done
Lux
to
just
TSM.
Yeah,
walking
that
in
was
here and
really
taking
heads
the
up thinking because
and
they
bursting it again.
realized, hey, we lost a member,
but
health bars are so
thankfully
low, if we
that did
prevent
not
the
happen.
basic
This
doesn't
tower
matter, and that's exactly what they
is
were able
just
to do.
one
But
tap
that
away.
was so close to going
I
heavily
mean,
into
literally a
the
minion.
TSM, and that
If
is a
it walks,
situation
if
where
it gets
I'm talking
to
about, you know, how
that
the
tower,
build,
the
right,
minion
where if you
kill
actually
it.
go for more of a Riot build
So
instead of this Kindle gem where you have
nothing they can
more
really
CR, makes your lane a little bit easier.
do about that. That's just
Boohie and
a matter of
everyone, right?
inevitability. I would
Have a
imagine the
powerful
TSM are
block
not
that
going to be
you can
looking
at
to
this
play
time, because
around
avoid that
the
because he went for Kindle,
mid
he
lane,
went for
but
Shreds, you know, he went
there they
for,
are.
kind of
Vladimir is around the mid lane. Spica is actually catching the wave instead of the Vladimir for some reason. Doesn't make any sense considering that Vladimir is a much harder late game carry. But this is also fairly dangerous. I don't know why he's inviting this potential risk. You don't know. I mean, they don't know for certain where everyone is. I guess I can imagine. But
yeah, there's pros and cons to each build, right?
the level of
you have to make a decision. All right, going for Void Staff,
confidence in that play was a little much. Even if he gets on top of Demonte could just kill him. Pretty sure.
That's great. But
So, and that would result in Baron for free for Golden Guardians. That would obviously be bad. I don't know why he was doing that. It doesn't really matter because it would result in
because
anything.
TSM is going to have to challenge every single dragon from now on, and it does get more complex.
So,
minutes because Baron becomes a legitimate threat. You know, when you have Lux here, just AoE shielding
you
your whole
probably,
team,
if you're TSM, you're probably sitting here thinking we should probably 1-3-1. We can at least push the waves against the Shen and the Echo. We do have teleport coming up on our Syndra. He finally just gets taken because I suppose FBI was somewhere else for a little bit and wasn't able to catch the wave with body. Also with the teleports, I mean the teleports are going to be up by the time the next objective comes up, which is when they should be fighting. They should not be looking to fight for the next objective, but there's no particular reason to do that, especially when you're considering the composition that they have, scaling that they have. It invites weird play like this.
Goodbye to Ash after shutdown and Pearson. Just has absolutely nowhere to go. He's going to walk past the turret, guarantee the kill for good measure. One more turret shot will kill him. He's always dead. That time to run for the objective.
This is so bad for TSM. Just poor positioning for them. They got split up, and Pearson both go down. Even more might die here. Broken Blade trying to look for a potential flank, but otherwise,
so now that
going
Baron is free,
they may just lose the game right off of this. We'll see if TSM can try to put a stop to this Baron attempt.
I don't think that there's any world where Vladimir can get in because of Demonte play against him. Even if Broken Blade can somehow kill Demonte, he's not going to be able to stop the Baron.
No one's going to try to steal. And look at the Drake timer. 45 seconds, instant 5-man recall. Pick your items up.
Yeah, you're going to have 45 seconds. I mean, this is a pretty normal recall timer anyway. Or it's a late recall timer for Dragons, but it's a pretty fine recall. So they'll be able to reset and be just on time for the soul, which I think is fine. They should be in time. They also will have the Baron, so they'll be able to perma push the mid lane, so they will have priority. TSM are kind of corralling themselves here, so it's down to their prowess more so than any setup that they had. Setup is actually mostly in Golden Guardian's favor due to the Baron and the recalls. Demonte was able to get out. Double is now basically out of the fight. He does have his arrow, so he still should probably stay, so he can get an angle on that. I mean, with the Infernal Soul, I mean, this game is pretty much over. I don't think there's any way for them to come back on this.
Golden Guardians get everything, not even losing a single member. Huhi with the absolute hero play there. flashing in for the shield after that.
Yeah, I think that this game comes down to two distinct decisions that really screwed over TSM, and maybe they are more the end result of them, but at least the second one is. So, for the first one, the first big mistake was the going for the coin flip on the dragon, or the potential flip on the dragon. They didn't really they didn't really set up to prevent Golden Guardians from walking into getting any damage on the dragon from across the pit. So obviously FBI and Huki were able to do a lot in terms of getting their soul point. Then of course the very strange top lane decision didn't really make sense. I mean, overall, I think the TSM played fine. It maybe was boring, but it was pretty much in line with what they were trying to do with the composition. And they turned on when they wanted to turn on. I'd actually argue that Golden Guardians didn't really do the ask that was that their composition wants them to. So they have they want a snowball early, and they weren't really able to do much with that. Especially when the snowball wants to be with what, Echo and Caitlyn, so that you can be accelerated past what TSM do. But even with I think Closer got 2 successful ganks off without real answers. Even with that, I think that TSM was in a genuinely fine position because of the composition they had. I just think that TSM just make unforced errors for no particular reason. Dragon, I think, is less egregious. Obviously, I said that Spica, it was very difficult for Spica to be able to get that smite, so I think that's fine. But I mean, the game-losing play obviously is the top lane play. I don't just go back to it. For here, where we're kind of moving around for no reason. We aggress onto the top lane. I mean, TSM's composition has no reason other than to play around the objectives, especially with the soul being a contested objective. They don't really have. I mean, you could argue that TSM's composition could pick people off, but I feel like you'd rather play for the team fight than anything else if you're TSM. So yeah, I mean, they were in a pretty fine position. I think that they also screwed up a little bit in terms of, where was that? They also lost a few kills before this. Not here. Yes, that's obviously bad. Died. Right. Here, we're just randomly dying for some reason, and then who dies after this? And then they go for an attempted play 40 seconds before the dragon comes up. Now, to be fair on this one, they actually were able to get them on this. But it's I honestly think it's very coin flippy. And if the previous play with Bifrost doesn't happen, / with, I think, Spica and Doublelift were also there, I don't think that this even needs to happen. I think this is a result of what the TSM felt they needed to do. But even with 3, they were able to push off most of Golden Guardians. I think that's mostly the Bjergsen's play that allowed that to happen. So, in fact, I'll just let this play. You can actually look at this. Ash did a lot here. Spica is just trying to push the wave. He's not even involved in this. Bifrost is coming back to life. So they're not able to base, as Dale was saying, and they're half health. They're not really able to contest very easily. So it becomes very difficult. I mean, Bjergsen is just harassed City over here with these. They're able to move over here, and the only thing that they can do is use Huki's Final Flash.
There comes the left something, so this should be TSM Dragon.
Whatever it's actually called.
Just chase them down after that fight.
Yeah, stays a bit too long, but maybe it's a bait. Nah, he's got Spellshield, though, when you kill Bjergsen off that one. So a Flashless Volibear could be a problem next 5 minutes. Well done to TSM.
Yeah,
in order to contest. So
because they realized, hey, we lost a member, but the health bars are
obviously, I think that what the ideal state in this case would be 2 dragons to 2, and then you have the scaling composition so you can just win every fight, and then you don't make the mistake top lane, and then you can convert your position over to the dragon from where they were at, where because Golden Guardians are pushed past their tier 1s. In fact, in mid lane, they're actually past tier 2. You can use that to your advantage and get vision here around this side, move into the dragon and contest. It's actually a lot easier as the red side team because the dragon faces you. It becomes even more difficult, and the only real hope at a certain point is Caitlyn and Lux hitting some range or using closer to basically int to go for the smite steal, which on 2 to 2 would be not ideal. Or I guess you could argue you could use your 3 dive champions, dive as much as you can, and then leave behind your Caitlyn and your Lux, which I don't think would be necessarily ideal either. The real problem is that TSM don't seem to have an identifying play that they make. They seem to be aggressive, uh, needlessly willing to scrap, even in positions where they don't want to scrap, or when earlier on in the game they were like, well, I don't think we should do anything. It just seems like the knowledge to say, or maybe it's not even knowledge, because I'm pretty sure they're all aware of how their champions work, of how each champion on their team works. But I think it's the question of, do they have the necessary patience to go for plays that are higher percentage and not necessarily the, hey, let's try to flank them or aggress onto upside or be in their jungle for some reason and wait for them to come into us or something. I think that the wiser play is to wait for objectives, wait for the dragon that is to your benefit, both due to your scaling and due to the geometry of the map, and hope that you don't get it stolen by Caitlyn Lux. Or alternatively, you can pull it and then bait Golden Guardians in. If they don't take the bait, then you pull it so far that Caitlyn can't hit her Peacemaker through the wall, and then also move it so that Lux can't really hit it either. I mean, I feel like I'm harping on the Caitlyn Lux issue, but that's like the only actual avenue for Golden Guardians to contest those dragons if TSM play it the way I think that their composition is designed to be played. So, in conclusion, can't wait for I think this Friday, right? TSM versus Cloud9 should be very interesting. I've been Rojo. Bye.